Okay, in this one we're going to start building out that basic authentication system. So not going to be anything massively complex or over-engineered, but it's just so that we have that persistence in between requests, because there's not many applications where each request is standalone and no information is remembered about the user. Maybe if you're building APIs, but if you're building like applications with a front end, then you're usually storing some kind of information to the session so it remembers the user as you navigate between pages. And so I'm going to start by creating a database, and we'll create a table in that database just to hold user information. And so we can call this auth demo. Sounds like a good name. That's not right. I need to create a new database. Auth demo. And our encoding shall be right down the bottom, UTF-8 and UTF General CI. I think that's the right one. Okay, and so I'll click OK, and then I open that database, and I've actually got some SQL to create a database prepared, and so I'll go to my user SQL file here. So I'll just talk you through this. Auto incrementing ID, usual stuff that you will have for database records, and then we're just going to have a username, 50 characters, must be unique, not null, password, varchar, 255 characters. Gone with 255 because if we look at the PHP manual documentation, the password default algorithm, basically what it says is it recommends 255 characters because the database column could expand over time as they improve or change this algorithm. So that's basically why we're doing that. Okay, let's copy this. Haven't covered everything there. Oh, the last field is created at, which will be entered every time a new user is created. Okay, so we shall copy all of this, go over to my database client thing that I'm using here. So I'm using something called Table Plus. Free version. I think it's pretty good. I'm not affiliated with them anyway. It's just what I use. Okay, paste that in there, and then to execute this I just press Command and Enter. Okay, query 1. Okay, let's give this a refresh, and so there we have a user table. We'll look at the structure to make sure everything's been done correctly. So ID, varchar, and date time. Okay, looks good. Now I'm going to use the terminal to actually create a user in the database. So by the way, the project I've created is called, I've just called it session auth demo. The only files I've got in there, the only file I've got in there is just my user SQL file at the moment. Okay, so I can open a interactive PHP prompt by doing PHP-A. And what I want to do here is just generate a hashed password to go into my database record. So I'm just going to create one user that we can use and authenticate. So the way I can do this is echo password hash, and then I'll just add a string, so I'll just say secret, not very secure, and it's password underscore default, all uppercase, and that is the algorithm. So don't forget your semicolon on the end. This looks good, and there we have a hashed password. Pretty cool, hey? Did you know about that trick? So we'll copy this, we'll go over to the database, and we'll actually insert a record. So ID will be 1, username, I'll make some space for these columns across the top here. I'll need a big space for the password. Username at Gary Clarke Tech, paste in the password, and created that should automatically happen for me when I save this. So I'll hit Command and S. The field password doesn't have a default value. Ignore that. Hit S again. Okay, so I think something happened. Refresh, and that seems to have persisted. Okay, great stuff. So I've got a record in the database now. Let's go back to PHP Storm, over to the terminal. I'll quit the interactive prompt with Control and C, clear that, and now I just want to get a couple of packages in because I want the autoloader from Composer, but I'll also be dumping stuff out, so I'll get Symfony var dumper, and we'll also set up PHPUnit because I have an idea in mind where we're going to do some testing on around building a session class. That sound pretty good? Okay, so composer require, and we'll require dev because var dumper and PHPUnit are development requirements and not needed for production. So it is Symfony and then var hyphen dumper. If I can spell any of these right, var dumper and then PHPUnit. Crikey. PHPUnit. I'll slow down a bit. PHPUnit. Hit enter. And so that'll go and install those things. And then we can close the terminal, go over and check. We have a composer JSON file and it is required dev. Okay, perfect. And so I'm going to set up a source folder, and this is where all of our source file classes, all the classes that we create ourselves shall be held, and I want to map that to an app namespace. So if you remember from the first part of the course, we need to auto load, and then it's PSR4, and then we are mapping, and it's a namespace first, so app // colon and then src. Okay, perfect. But we're not done there, because once you've done that, you actually have to dump autoload to make that change permanent. So composer, and if I start typing dump and press up, because I've done this recently, dump hyphen autoload, and the O means optimize, as in optimize the files. Not sure exactly what that does, to be honest, but I think it just compresses the files or makes them smaller, maybe. Okay, generating optimized autoload files, and so now we have autoloading set up and we can move on.